Hey guys, I'm finally back with a new video. This time I tried a different format where I will show you two hands that I played on NL1K on GG. I will use Pio to discuss the theory behind those spots. And yeah, would be nice if you could let me know in the comments if you like this type of content as well. So the first hand that I want to show you is a single raise spot cutoff versus big blind, where we open pocket fours on cutoff and get a ace 9 6 two-tone board. Those ace high boards are mostly very good for imposition, so we can expect a high frequency c-bet, often even a range bet. And when we look at the sim, then we can see that out of position has 1.8 BB and in position 3.3 BB. So indeed this board is good. And we see a high frequency c-bet. In theory, solver wants to check with some like pocket kings down to pocket jacks, so pocket pairs which can't barrel 3 times and don't need too much protection. Same with king queen off, so like the very strong high cards. In reality, I think you can just range bet here as well, probably, because out of position has to find a lot of weird check raises and has to continue a lot with marginal hands. When we look at the sim, then you can see he has to check raise 9-8 off, 7-6, 8-6, 6-5, 6-4, 6-3. Like a lot of check raises with low pairs, even with pocket threes, pocket deuces, has to core jack highs, queen highs, king highs. So when we expect that this doesn't happen in reality, and if we would node lock it here, I'm pretty sure the c-bet frequency gets higher or even up to like range bet. So flop is pretty standard. I c-bet for 25%, he calls, and now we hit the queen turn, the offsuit queen. So this is a card which is a clear indicator for an overbet or check spot. Why? We have very many strong hands here. Out of position check raise a lot of strong hands on turn already. So in position has much higher EV on this card because we still have all the pocket nines, pocket sixes, ace nine, ace queen, pocket queens, which really want to play for stacks on many runouts. So when we look at the EV on the turn, offsuit queen, we can see that out of position has 2.7 BB and in position has 5.1 BB. So yeah, very good card for our range. And as I said, a very clear overbet or check spot. Now when we look at our range, the worst hand which wants to overbet here for value is around like a very strong top pair like ace jack, mostly ace jack. And when we look at our other range, like our second pairs, even with the flush draw, are always checking or nearly always checking. And now the interesting part is like the bluffs, because it's mostly very easy to find the value hands because they are obvious, but it's not always that easy to find the correct bluffs. And when you look at bluffs, you have like two types of bluffs. You have the natural bluffs and the unnatural bluffs. Natural bluffs are like or the gut shots which you turn here, like king jack, jack 10, king 10. And you can see that those get in there like almost pure. So it's quite easy to find those. But now you have to think, okay, I can't just bluff those natural candidates, because what happens if the river is another high card? So another jack 10 king or whatever. Then you will end up lacking bluffs if you only find those natural bluffs. But you have to make sure that you have bluffs on every single run out. And that's why you also have to find some unnatural bluffs. And Solver likes to take hands like low suited King X a lot here, which he also does on this kind of board. Then low suited connector are often in there as well, like for example 5-4, which just has no equity at all. And some low pocket pairs, as we just had, like pocket fours, pocket threes, pocket deuces. And those hands get in there not only because you need bluffs on all runouts, but also because they unblock a lot of those like core folds. For example, like in this case, some top pairs or like Queen X with flush draw and those kind of hands. So yeah, always make sure to think about your whole range and not only like fire the natural bluffs, but also think of some other candidates which could be good. And yeah, as I said, pocket fours is a mix between overbet and check. And I wouldn't have chosen this hand if I wouldn't have overbet. So yeah, I overbet turn with fours. And now the 7 of club river comes in, which brings the flush. And this card changes the dynamic of the board a lot. Because when we look at the EV now, and also when you see some donking, this is also a very good indicator mostly that the board changed and that it hit the out of position pretty well. Because when you look at the EV now, we had a big EV difference for in position on turn, and now out of position on this card has 18 pp of the bot, and in position only 14 pp. So it shifted the EV favor towards out of position. Why is that the case? When we look at turn overbet, we said that our second pairs are like pure checks, even with the flush draw. And also like those ace 8, ace 7, as you can see, the low top pairs with the nut flush draw also gets checked most of the time. Whereas out of position obviously always calls those hands. And also always calls the queen high flush draws. So once the river comes in, out of position has actually a ton of flushes, which we often don't have anymore. And that's why, yeah, I think I resolved this real quick to get rid of the donks here, because it changes the strategy a bit, and I think in reality nobody really finds those donks. So the sim gets more accurate if I remove those. And when you look at imposition strategy now, you can see that it almost only wants to use 75%. Some shoves get in there, but yeah, I can show you what I did. So I had pocket fours and I just rip it in for like 3x pot, and villain ends up calling with ace jack with the nut flush blocker. And in theory, my play, when you look at pocket fours with a club, so in theory, it's okay to like triple barrel and use the all-in sizing with exactly pocket fours, pocket threes, and yeah, some other hands. But I think I still made a mistake here by using this overbet or like the shove sizing, because it's pretty hard to balance those low frequency shoves. And when I look at the sim now, I would have liked myself to only play 75 or check. And the reason behind this is that I don't really lose any value if I have a very strong hand. So mostly you want to find shoves to like get the money in with your nuts. But when you shove like out of position, it's not really calling you with a lot. You see that even hands like second nuts, which you want to get, or like queen high flushes, which you want to get value from with shoving, gets folded a bit. So yeah, the shove doesn't achieve too much, not even with your nuts. But when you play like your nut 75, which it actually uses with like all the nut flush draws nearly, then you can see that out of position is shoving most of his flushes himself. So it's not that you really lose any value by not finding shoves with your very strong range versus his very strong range. And when you look at your overall range, you have a lot of hands which still want to play 75% or check though. So you have a lot of sets still, queens, nines, sixes. You also river some straight which want to bet 75. So 75 is the sizing which the biggest part of your range wants to bet. And interesting is as well that this card is so bad for us that we can't even bet top 2 for value anymore. So if you have ace queen without a club blocker, it just gets check back pure on river. So yeah, pretty interesting in my opinion. And in theory my play is okay, but I think in reality I should have played it different and just bluff for the 75% sizing. The second hand which I want to show you is also a cutoff versus big blind spot, but this time it's a free bet spot where we free bet queen 10 suited and will course. Flop we get check check 5 two-tone. Those paired check high boards are mostly good for our range, and we can also see that here in the sim that it's almost a range bet even for a half pot c-bet sizing. Again, when you look at the EV, it's 13 bb for out of position and only 9 bb for in position. And again, it's not really a range bet here in theory, but when you look at the in position response, he has to find some very hard cores with like king 10, queen 10, king queen without backdoor flush draws. And I think those are very hard to find, and most people will just fold them pure. So range betting this board for half pot is for sure a good strategy. And yeah, we also did that in reality. So we bet half pot, he cores, and turn brings the double flush draw, like the 3 of hearts. In our sim, it's the 3 of diamonds here. And when you look at the theory, Sora wants to mix sizings here a bit between 50 and 75. I don't mix sizings on turn here, so I only use 50%, and that's why I'm gonna resolve this real quick again for half pot only. And again, we first want to look at our value hands, what they're gonna do. And you can see that the very strong hands getting bet a lot, like the overpairs mix a bit, the trips like king check, queen check, check 10 bet pure. But you still find some checks with very strong hands as well to protect your checking range. So this is like almost always the case. And yeah, the lowest hand which wants to bet for value here is pocket 10s, even some pocket 9s. So yeah, this is like the threshold here. But more interesting again are the bluffs. We talked about natural and unnatural bluffs on the last hand already. And same is in this case. Like, it's very easy to find the natural bluffs because, yeah, we have a double flush draw board here. So when we look at the clubs, you can see that basically all clubs are pure bets on turn. Diamonds are pretty similar here. So most diamonds are getting bet. Interesting maybe what happens when you check with those diamonds. You can see that many of them go for the check shove. Ace King specifically just wants to check core. Why? I can imagine that this hand is a good like check core and then check core on river as well, because yeah, villain won't really bluff his missed ace diamond or king diamond on like a non-diamond river. So yeah, I think that's why you can also check core with ace king. But yeah, more interesting again are like the unnatural bluffs. And last hand we said good unnatural bluffs are hands which unblock the like core forts. So in this case, hands which unblock the core forts are mostly hands that don't contain a club or a diamond, because imposition will obviously always continue with his like flush draws imposition, but can't core them on river, like, or at least can't core most of them on river, on many rivers. So that's why not having clubs or diamonds is actually pretty good here. And not only that, when we don't only want to block his like core forts, we also want to block his like core cores. So his very strongest hands. And the strongest hand that imposition has here are a lot like trips, obviously. So like check X. And because it's a free bet bot in quite strong positions, imposition will mostly only have the suited combinations. And because the check already, like the check diamond and check club is already on board, his strongest suited hands are the heart and spade combinations. So again, having a heart or a spade is pretty good here. And when we look at hands like queen 10, spade and heart, king 10, king queen, even ace queen, you can see that those are very high frequency or sometimes even close to pure bets. And yeah, our hand in this sim would be like queen 10 heart or queen 10 spade. And you can see that it's getting bet for 78%. Some other bluffs here are hands, which is in my opinion pretty interesting, is a hand like ace king off. But again, the combinations without the diamond or club. And you might ask yourself, okay, why do you bet this hand on turn? Because, yeah, most likely this is not a triple hand. And when we look at, for example, a very clean river, sorry, then you can see ace king indeed doesn't triple, but is a good, like, bet, and then check call on river with like ace high. Because, again, imposition shouldn't really bluff with ace high here, and it blocks a lot of value because imposition obviously always has the ace check and king check suited, and it unblocks all the lower flush draws. So it's a pretty good candidate to bet and then check core. But again, looking at our hand here, which was queen 10, I don't know if you guys are aware of this tool which you have on Pio here, which is the runouts EV comparison, where I can pick one specific hand. So in our hand it was like queen 10. And we can see what this hand does on all the different runouts. And as you can see, it almost never gets checked on river unless you hit like a pair. Then yeah, it's more like, for example, when you look at the queen, it's more like a value bet now and not like a bluff. But on all the other runouts, it just gets tripled off. So yeah, it's a very good candidate to triple barrel bluff. And in our hand, the river was, so I bet turn, he calls, and the river was the 4, which doesn't bring a flush, so let's take the 4 of spades. And you can see indeed queen 10, king queen, even ace queen a bit gets tripled here all the time. And when you look at the AV comparison, it would actually be a big punt to not bluff this kind of hand because it's a 5 BB difference, which is quite a lot for a bluff. So always make sure to not give up those hands on river. And also maybe interesting is that you can once you get to the river with like 9s and 10s, they just triple for value here because imposition still has to core a lot of like lower pocket pairs, even some ace highs. And it's a bit of a merge bet as well because you can see when you bet 9s, you get called by worse hands, but also forward out some stronger hands. Yeah, and so in position, in reality, I'm happy that I found the triple barrel bluff and also the turn bet, which is maybe not that intuitive for uh, most people. And in position, unfortunately, end up having a boat, but yeah, I'm still happy with my play.